Domestic violence is a serious issue that affects many individuals, including domestic workers. It involves abusive behavior used by one person to control another in a domestic setting. Now, domestic workers who are often vulnerable due to their employment circumstances can face increased risk of abuse and exploitation. The toll of domestic violence on domestic workers can result in physical injuries, emotional trauma, and long-lasting psychological effect. It is crucial to address and prevent domestic violence to ensure the safety and well-being of all individuals, including domestic workers. Hello and welcome to Insight Today. I am Jumai Manson. Today I have with me on the program Dr. Niniola Fawore, who is a Director of Public Relations. Stay tuned. The program continues shortly. You're welcome back, and if you're just tuning in, this is Insight Today on Global Television, and today we're going to be looking at domestic violence and the toll on domestic workers. And of course, I said I have with me on the program Miss Dr. Niniola, and she's with me via Zoom. Good afternoon, Dr. Niniola, are you here? Hello, Dr. Niniola, are you here? All right, we're going to be looking at domestic violence and the toll in which it has on domestic workers. As we all know, we've had series of cases where employees actually incur injuries when it has to do with the domestic workers, from a little child to a house help, the beating they get, burning with iron and all of that. But does it really have these effect when it comes to the individuals who are living in the same environs as these domestic workers? Here, what you give, you get back in return. You might not get it directly, but through people that you love. It's very, very physical when it comes to their domestic workers, and at the same time, the domestic workers just takes the anger out on the children or properties and does all whatnot in the home. Like I said, I will be joined by Dr. Niniola, who will be discussing these very sensitive issues when it has to do with violence and, of course, violence on the toll it has on domestic workers. Do not go anywhere. The program continues shortly.
Get ready for it. Insight Today brings you issues relating to family, peer pressure, drugs, substance abuse, societal and topical issues making rounds. Join Juma and Manson on Global Television Monday to Thursday and it repeats every Friday. Time 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. Don't miss out.
Are you? You're welcome back from that short break. And like I said, I'm being joined by Dr. Niniola Fafore, and she is the director, public relations. Good afternoon, Dr. Niniola. Are you here?
I am here. Good afternoon to you.
All right, it's great to have you on the program.
Thank you very much. God bless you.
All right,
you.
Dr. Niniola. Now, what are the types of domestic violence that you know, the common forms that you and we know?
Hello, can you hear me? Hello? Can you repeat your question? Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Hello?
Oh, Dr. Niniola, please go ahead. I can barely hear you.
Okay. Can you repeat your question? Hello? Are you there? Can you repeat the question, please?
All right, let's quickly go on a very quick break, Dr. Niniola. The program continues shortly. Ibrahim, I cannot even hear what...
Get ready for it. Inside Today brings you issues relating to family, peer pressure, drugs, substance abuse, societal and topical issues making rounds. Join Juma and Manson on Global Television Monday to Thursday and it repeats every Friday. Time 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. Don't miss out.
All right, you're welcome back from that very short break. Apologies, just due to some very simple technical issues, but we're back and we're better now. And Dr. Niniola, are you here with me right now?
I am here with you, madam. Sorry.
All right, I can hear you perfectly now. Now, we're talking about the common forms of domestic violence, and we know that violence have different forms. It's not all about when you inflict injury on someone. There's so many that has to do with the common forms. So can you just name a few that we can know right now?
All right, thank you for giving me this platform. Yes, when it comes to domestic staff, when it comes to human relationship, when it comes to relationship with your domestic staff in the house, it comes in different forms. We have the physical violence, we have the verbal abuse, you have psychological manipulation, you also have as far as sexual harassment, and I've actually heard of scenarios when it leads to human trafficking. Right. So these are very common forms and categories of domestic violence within the domestic forces. Thank you.
Neola. Now, looking at this critically, some people will say the only way I can pass the message is when I inflict injury on a domestic staff, especially when the person is finding it hard to understand, when communication is a barrier. Now, we've seen cases whereby employees who actually employ these domestic staffs do all sorts when it comes to burning the person with iron, starvation, all of these things that are barbaric. Now, how would you characterize that now?
Oh, well, thank you for this question again. That is really barbaric. That is actually out of I don't know how to put it, but it's not acceptable in any way. However, I think that there are so many solutions, which is going to be a multifaceted solution or approach in dealing with such barbaric action acts, really. So, and it's not acceptable. It's really a very serious offense on humans, and it should not be taken for granted. And I think there should be some legal reforms when it comes to things like that. I know that most times they have no voice, or most of these abuses are underreported, because some of them have to live within your premises, so they are isolated in reporting such situations because they need the income, because they need a roof over their heads, because they need to support their family who are far and wide from them, and some of them are as far as outside the country, so they don't want to be deported. So when you look at the various situations they find themselves. Actually
All right.
bring some awareness.
Dr. Nidiola, I want to ask a question now. There are some circumstances whereby these domestic staffs actually cause a lot of issues in the home. We've seen a situation whereby some of these domestic staffs have actually killed their employees. They have beaten the children of these employees. They have done a lot of havoc, inviting hoodlums and thieves to steal from these employees. Now, what are the subtle and easy way to handle this sort of things? So what do you advise for an employee to do when he or she finds herself in that sort of situation where domestic staff in which you have helped, you have been kind to, does all of these things, still maltreat the children in which they are in care of? How do you think they can handle such situations?
Hi, it's a very tough one because it doesn't, it's very tough. I've had situations like that, where you have people stealing from you, and it's because they are not aware you have a CCTV. So I think when you look at it from the employer side, first and foremost, there's a way you get the staff. That means there must have been a channel. There's an agency. So what you need to do is that before you actually have those people brought into your house or your family, you need to have verified these agencies. You need to have verifiable recommendations from these agencies or friends. That is number one. That is why you have to do background check. I know sometimes we are under pressure to want to put our house in order. For instance, I tell my partner, like, I'm sorry, if my house is not in order, I cannot work at work. So fine. So what happened is that you need to have verifiable channels, that is to validate their information. That's number one. Number two, you have to do your own proper interview, because many a times over the years you have experience when it comes to people who work with you. So when you have opportunity to interview them and ask questions, if you really know what you're doing, you can actually read some of their behavior, because they usually have a pattern. You will know when somebody is lying. You have to ask them the same question in different formats. You would know they're lying. That is another way. Number three is you also have to study them, right? Maybe when they're home, you have to have CCTV. See, you cannot have people and putting your children under the authority of people like that if you don't even understand who they are. So it's something that is very important. If your family is under serious abuse by them, then there's a problem. Then another thing is that you also have to show a lot of empathy to them, a lot of empathy to them. And that is another thing. Some of them might have a very bad intention coming over to your place, but over the time when they spend time with you, they might see that you're a kind person. So you also have to do that. You have to engage them in some kind of prayers together as a family. You have to treat them as a family also. You have to eat whatever you're cooking, let them eat from that same pot. Serve them from what you eat. And depending on their age group, if they are under 18, they have to go to school. So you have to consider a lot of responsibilities that will be coming to your table because your children are also very important. I've had friends who have people for over 5, 6 years. So they treat them well. So you have to have a younger person and you have to give them room. And there are some of them, they already have a mindset. Maybe they have a mindset, it's very tough. So you have to know when to take them out as soon as possible, but in a very polite way, without even informing them ahead of time. Because if you tell them ahead of time, they might inflict some injury on your family before then and all that. So it's not something that we can completely rule out because even human to human, there are people who will still not be happy with no matter how nice you are to them. So it's something that's a joint force. Legal reforms is very important. Supportive services to report them. That is why when you have recommendation, you also have to ensure that you can report them back to whoever brought them. And then you also have to ensure that whoever is bringing them have reputation because some of them have like a cabal. They have a syndicate where they rob people. So you also have to be security conscious and you just have to make sure you're also available no matter how. If you're not going to be around, let your sister be around whenever you're traveling. Your husband is not around, somebody has, as a family member, has to also support you one way or the other, but ensure you have CCTV. I have a friend who got a new person and they went to church without her, and then the wife was so worried in church and said, oh husband, we need to go back, I left this girl at home, she has not eaten. So she rushed into the kitchen just to cook for the girl. Then the husband went to check the CCTV camera and found that she had scraped the whole food from different pots. It was really a sad one at the end of the day, and they had to take her back home to where she came from. So it's a very complicated and tough situation, but I think we can address that. Yes.
You know what, Dr. Niniola, I want to ask a question, and I'm sure most individuals will ask the same thing. Now, how do you reprimand a domestic worker now, for instance? How do you caution these individuals? Is it very important that, like I mentioned from the beginning, some people will say the best way you can pass the message is when you actually spank the person or do something. People can just decide that they will not have food from morning till evening just to pass a message. Maybe the domestic worker, for instance, has a problem of stealing. So how do you think is the best way to just pass this message, aside inflicting injury, aside starving the person, aside doing all sorts of barbaric things to this domestic worker?
You see, thank you very much for this question. You see, human beings have different personality, and unfortunately for some of them, most all of them are not usually happy doing this job, and they see it as a way of, just to make some income for their family, right? I think if you're bringing such a person under your roof, into your house, you have to study them. You have to study them. In studying them, some of them might not talk, some of them they have a mindset already. So these are the things that you have to look into when you are interviewing them, so that you don't have a very difficult person in your homes. A lot of people are in a hurry to have them in their homes, and at the end of the day, they have no clue, they are out of the house. You have a responsibility as an employer to ensure that the people staying under your roof are actually good enough to stay with you and you can harmonize with them. So, but if you already found yourself in a situation whereby you're stuck and, getting another person is going to take you about a month or 2 months, which happens, You have to find a way. You have to find a way to talk to them. You have to find a way you have to sit them down, probably buy something for them. Because see, we're dealing with lives and properties that you have you have brought lives into your own life. You have used your money to buy things. You don't want them destroyed or looted. So you have every responsibility to keep them safe. You have to do whatever it is to speak to them. You don't have to starve them because you can't starve your child. You have to look at them like your child, right? You have to look at them like your person. There are ways you can talk to people. There are ways you can also punish them, but not through starving, not through beating them. It's not necessary. If you can do that to your kids, maybe fine. But if you can't do that to your own kids, then don't do that to them because they want a place they can find peace. I know there are people that are wicked, but you can have a change of mind. Many, many years ago, I used to have a chef that stayed with me for a long time. And the reason why he stayed was that for the first time he found peace, right? So I can understand that they need you to talk to them like a human being. Don't look down on them. You understand? Don't look down on them. Like I said, also pray together as a family. Watch their patterns. Just the way you study your child, you have to study them. But don't starve anybody. Give them food. I used to have I've had some women come to clean your house and all they do is to eat your food. They only come to eat food. That's all. Right. They have no other business. When you're not home, they do whatever they want to do and all that. So at some point you're like, oh, what's going on? But still, you must have empathy, right? You must have empathy. And some of them, they have their lives that are very deceitful. They're just there for a while when they make up their money. So you have to deploy different strategies. We are human beings and we keep dealing with people every day. So I would advise that there are better ways to do it. Try to communicate with them. Try to, relate with them. Ask them questions. What do you think about this situation? How about your parents? How about your family? You have a child? There's a way to do that. You have to be sensitive to them. And then you have to know. So when you cook together, you just watch out for things, right? And then get them engaged with your family. Just relate with them. They will talk. And if they refuse to, then I think it's time you ask them to leave, right? Without informing them. Just you don't tell them. Some of them are wicked. They will deal with you. They will deal with you. Some of them are really brutal, but there's always a way out. It's all human relationship. It's all communication. You must develop different communication skills at that level, and always remember, if they were smart enough, they would not be in that situation. They won't be working for you. They won't be in your house. So you need to come down to their level. Because if they're intelligent, they will be in school, they will have found a way to manage their problems. So it's because they cannot attain that level. That is why they look for this job, within your
Now,
territory.
quickly now, before we wrap up the program, now looking at this critically for a domestic worker who is going through this sort of domestic violence, who cannot voice out even when she tries. And some employees, I'm not saying all, they're unable to tolerate, because tolerance is a very big word. They cannot stand when someone else comes into their homes and they make mistakes. Because I would say, let's say, for instance, when a plate is being broken or a cup is being broken, some people are not tolerant enough to say, okay, fine, it's a mistake. They have to inflict injury, or it could be the abusive words, and it could be very traumatic for these domestic workers. How do you think a domestic worker who is listening to you right now can wiggle around all of these things quickly now because of our time?
All right. Well, if they're listening and watching from wherever they are, I think that if you have the access to listen to this, or you have access to watch this, that means you can have access to probably a neighbor or an outsider. You just have to solicit help from your neighbors. You have to. No matter how much they isolate you, at least you have opportunities to step out of the house to probably spread the clothes, security. You have to find somebody, and then you have to plan your exits. Because the truth is that a lot of times people have anger issue from their workplace with their partners, and the people who have no no power are the ones they want to inflict that their anger on. So it's a terrible situation. There's nothing you can do about it because they might take it to another level. And the truth is that if their partner cannot manage their anger, if their workplace cannot and they cannot manage, then you're going to be in serious trouble. I still find a
Okay.
way, seek support from neighbors and find a
Mm-hmm.
way around it and plan your exit as soon as possible. Thank you.
All right. Oh, that's about all we can take on the program Inside Today. Thank you so much, Dr. Niniola. Thank you for being a part of the program. Thank you for your well of knowledge on this particular issue. Thank you for being a part of the program. And yes, Dr. Niniola Fafore, she is the Director of Public Relations. Thank you so much for being a part of the program.
Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye. Thank you.
And with that, we have to wrap it up on the program. Not before I leave you with this. Now, the toll of violence on domestic staff is significant and requires attention to ensure the safety and well-being of these individuals. Let us always have it at the back of our minds that these individuals are human beings and should be treated as one. What you give back is what you receive, indirectly or directly. Let us try as much as possible as employees to these domestic staff to strike a balance, and also domestic staff try as much as possible to strike a balance also. Thank you all so much for being a part of Insight Today. I am Jumai Manson. Have an amazing day ahead. Bye-bye.